The wind howled through the Oregon cliffs, carrying the salt of the Pacific and the weight of unspoken words. Ethan Caldwell, 24, stood at the edge, his heart pounding louder than the waves below. Tonight, he would tell his father the truth or lose himself trying. Ethan had rehearsed this moment for years, each word a shard of glass in his throat. Growing up in the small, conservative town of Astoria, he'd learned early to hide who he was. His father, Tom Caldwell, was a man of steel and tradition, a retired Navy officer who valued duty, discipline, and the unspoken rules of their tight-knit community. Ethan loved him fiercely, but that love was a cage. To Tom, a man was a provider, a protector, not someone who loved another man. Ethan had carried this secret since he was 15, when he first realized his feelings for his best friend, Ryan Harper. Now, with Ryan by his side, Ethan was done hiding. The cliffside was their place, a sanctuary where Ethan and Ryan could steal moments away from prying eyes. Ryan, with his warm hazel eyes and easy smile, had been Ethan's anchor through years of fear and doubt. They'd met in high school, bonded over late-night talks about dreams of escaping Astoria, and fallen in love under the stars. But tonight wasn't about them. It was about Ethan and the man who'd raised him. "You sure about this?" Ryan asked, his voice soft but steady, his hand brushing Ethan's. They stood by the cliff, the sunset painting the sky in hues of fire and gold. Ethan nodded, though his stomach churned. He'd invited Tom to meet him here, claiming they needed to talk about something important. Tom had agreed, his gruff voice over the phone betraying no suspicion. Ethan wasn't so sure he'd stay calm once the truth came out. Tom's truck rumbled into view, its headlights cutting through the dusk. Ethan's breath hitched. He squeezed Ryan's hand, then let go. "Stay close." "Okay," he whispered. Ryan nodded, stepping back but remaining within sight, a silent promise of support. Tom stepped out, his broad frame silhouetted against the fading light. At 52, he was still imposing, his salt and pepper hair cropped short, his face weathered by years at sea. He wore his usual flannel and jeans, his boots crunching on the gravel as he approached. "Ethan," he said, his voice a low rumble. "What's this about? You sounded off." Ethan swallowed, his throat dry. "Dad, I need to tell you something. Something I've been keeping from you for a long time." His voice trembled, but he forced himself to meet Tom's eyes. "I'm gay." The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. Tom's face froze, his jaw tightening. Ethan braced himself for the storm anger, disappointment, maybe even rejection. He'd seen it in other families in Astoria, where coming out often meant exile. But Tom didn't speak. He just stared, his blue eyes searching Ethan's face as if looking for a lie. "You're what?" Tom finally said, his voice low, almost a whisper. Ethan's heart sank. He'd expected shouting, not this quiet disbelief. It was worse. Somehow. "I'm gay, Dad," Ethan repeated, his voice steadier now. "I've known since I was a kid. I've been too scared to tell you because I didn't want to lose you. But I can't keep lying. I love someone, and I need you to know who I am." Tom's gaze flickered past Ethan, landing on Ryan, who stood a few yards away, hands in his pockets, watching nervously. Tom's brows furrowed. "Him?" he asked, nodding toward Ryan. Ethan nodded. "Yeah. His name's Ryan. He's everything to me." Tom's silence stretched on, each second a blade against Ethan's nerves. Then, without a word, Tom turned and walked back to his truck. Ethan's heart plummeted. He'd feared this, but the reality cut deeper than he'd imagined. Ryan started toward him, but Ethan held up a hand, stopping him. He needed to face this alone. "Dad, wait," Ethan called, his voice cracking. Tom paused, his hand on the truck's door, but he didn't turn around. "Please, say something. Anything." Tom's shoulders sagged. He turned, his face unreadable. I need time. Ethan, he said, his voice thick. I don't know what to say right now. He climbed into the truck and drove off, the taillights fading into the dusk. Ethan stood frozen, the wind biting at his skin. Ryan was at his side in an instant, pulling him into a hug. You did it, Ryan whispered. You were brave. That's what matters. But Ethan didn't feel brave. He felt like he'd just lost his father. The next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of his phone buzzing. It was a text from Tom. Meet me at the house. Noon. No explanation. No warmth. Just those 6 words. Ethan's stomach knotted as he read them. He hadn't slept, his mind replaying Tom's reaction on a loop. Ryan had stayed with him, offering quiet reassurance. But nothing could shake the dread pooling in Ethan's chest. At noon, Ethan pulled up to the modest house where he'd grown up. The sight of it white siding, a sagging porch, the old oak tree in the yard stirred a mix of nostalgia and fear. Tom was waiting on the porch, a mug of coffee in hand. He looked older somehow, the lines on his face deeper. Sit, Tom said, gesturing to the porch steps. Ethan obeyed, his hands clasped tightly to keep them from shaking. Tom sat beside him, staring out at the street. For a long moment, neither spoke. I didn't sleep last night, Tom said finally, his voice rough. Kept thinking about what you said. About who you are. He paused, sipping his coffee. I won't lie, Ethan. It's hard for me. I was raised a certain way. Men like me, we don't talk about this stuff. Ethan's throat tightened. I know, Dad. I didn't want to disappoint you. Tom shook his head. You think I'm disappointed? Ethan, you're my son. I've watched you grow into a man I'm proud of, smart, kind, stubborn as hell. He gave a small, rueful smile. But it's not what I expected. I need to understand it. And I don't know if I do yet. Ethan's eyes stung. I just want you to see me. The real me. Tom looked at him then. Really looked at him. And Ethan saw something shift in his father's eyes, pain. Maybe. But also something softer. I'm trying. Kid. Tom said. I'm trying. Over the next week, Ethan and Tom tiptoed around each other. Ethan stayed at Ryan's apartment, giving Tom space. But the distance felt like a chasm. He threw himself into his job at the local bookstore, losing himself in the quiet rhythm of shelving books and helping customers. Ryan was his rock, always there with a joke or a gentle touch to pull Ethan out of his spiral of worry. One evening, Ryan suggested they go back to the cliffside. You need to breathe, he said, tugging Ethan toward the car. They drove in comfortable silence, the radio playing soft indie tunes. When they reached the cliff, the stars were out, a blanket of light against the dark. Ryan pulled Ethan close, and for a moment, the world felt right. I love you, Ethan said, the words slipping out effortlessly. Ryan smiled, kissing him softly. I love you too, Ethan. Always will. But the peace didn't last. The next day, Ethan got a call from his mother's old friend, Linda, who still lived in Astoria. Ethan, honey, you need to talk to your dad, she said, her voice urgent. He's been asking around town about you and Ryan. He's been talking to Pastor James. Ethan's blood ran cold. Pastor James led the town's most conservative church, a man known for his fire and brimstone sermons. If Tom was talking to him, it couldn't be good. Ethan hung up, his mind racing. Had he misread his father's attempt to understand? Was Tom turning to the church to fix him? He drove to Tom's house, his heart pounding. When he pulled up, he saw an unfamiliar car in the driveway, a sleek black sedan that didn't belong in Astoria. Ethan's gut twisted. Something was wrong. Ethan stormed up the porch steps, his pulse hammering in his ears. The black sedan in the driveway gleamed under the midday sun, its presence an ominous question mark. He didn't knock, just pushed open the door to his childhood home, the familiar creak of the hinges doing nothing to calm his nerves. "Dad," Ethan called, his voice sharp with urgency. He found Tom in the living room, sitting across from a man in a crisp suit. The stranger was older, maybe in his late 50s, with slicked back hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Pastor James," Ethan realized with a jolt. The man's reputation preceded him. His sermons had driven more than one kid out of Astoria. "Ethan," Tom said, standing quickly. His face was a mask of unease, but he gestured to the man. "This is Dr. Ellis, not Pastor James. He's a counselor. I asked him to come talk." Ethan's stomach dropped. A counselor? His mind flashed to horror stories of conversion therapy, of kids sent away to camps to be fixed. He took a step back, his fists clenching. "Dad, what the hell is this?" "Dr. Ellis raised a hand, his voice smooth as polished glass. "Ethan, I'm here to help your father understand. That's all. No one's here to judge or change you." Tom rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding Ethan's gaze. I thought talking to someone might help me get my head around this. I don't know how to do this. Ethan, I'm trying, but it's a lot." Ethan's anger flared, but beneath it was a raw, aching hurt. "You think I need fixing? Is that what this is? You went to the church, didn't you?" "No." Tom's voice was sharp, almost desperate. "I didn't go to James. I heard about Dr. Ellis from Linda. He's not with the church. He's worked with families like ours." "Families like ours?" Ethan snapped. "What does that even mean?" Dr. Ellis stood, his calm demeanor unshaken. "It means families navigating something new. Your father loves you, Ethan. He's here because he wants to understand you, not because he wants to change you. I'm not that kind of counselor." Ethan didn't trust him. He didn't trust anyone who showed up in a suit to fix a family. But Tom's eyes were pleading, and for the first time, Ethan saw fear there, fear of losing his son. It stopped Ethan cold. "Fine," Ethan said, his voice tight. "But I'm not sitting through some lecture about how I'm broken. If you're here to help Dad, then help him. Don't drag me into it." Dr. Ellis nodded. "Fair enough. I'd like to talk to both of you, separately, if you're willing. No pressure." Ethan glanced at Tom, who looked like he was carrying the weight of the world. Against his better judgment, Ethan agreed. "Okay, but I'm doing this for you, Dad, not him." The session with Dr. Ellis was tense, but not what Ethan expected. The counselor asked questions about Ethan's childhood, his relationship with Tom, how he'd felt hiding his truth. Ethan answered cautiously, expecting a trap, but Dr. Ellis didn't push. He listened, nodding thoughtfully, and by the end, Ethan felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, Tom was serious about understanding. When it was Tom's turn, Ethan waited on the porch, the autumn air cool against his skin. He texted Ryan, filling him in. "Dad's trying, I think. But there's some counselor here, and I don't know what to think." Ryan's reply was instant. "You've got this. I'm here when you need me." Tom emerged an hour later, his face drawn but determined. "Can we talk?" he asked, sitting beside Ethan on the steps. "Just you and me." Ethan nodded, bracing himself. Tom stared at his hands, his voice low. "I was wrong to spring this on you. I should have told you about Ellis. I didn't know how to handle this. When you told me, up on the cliff, it felt like the ground fell out from under me. Not because I don't love you, Ethan, because I don't know how to be the dad you need." Ethan's throat tightened. "You don't have to be perfect, Dad. I just need you to try. To see me." "I'm seeing you," Tom said, his voice breaking. "But it's hard. I keep thinking about what I was taught, what I believed, and I'm scared I'll mess this up. Ethan reached out, hesitant, and put a hand on Tom's shoulder. You're here. That's a start. Tom looked at him, his eyes glistening. I don't want to lose you. Ethan, you're all I've got. For the first time in days, Ethan felt a spark of hope. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and Tom met with Dr. Ellis regularly. The sessions were grueling, peeling back layers of unspoken pain. Tom admitted he'd grown up in a world where being gay was a sin, a weakness. He'd never questioned it until Ethan forced him to. Ethan, in turn, shared the fear and shame he'd carried. The nights he'd lain awake wondering if his father would ever accept him. Ryan was a constant presence, supporting Ethan through the emotional roller coaster. One night, as they lay in bed, Ryan traced circles on Ethan's back. You're doing something incredible, he said. You're giving him a chance to change. I don't know if he will, Ethan admitted, but I have to try. For both of us. Meanwhile, Astoria buzzed with gossip. Word of Ethan's coming out had spread, and not everyone was kind. At the bookstore, Ethan overheard whispers, some sympathetic, others cruel. One customer, an older man who'd known Tom for years, cornered Ethan. You're breaking your father's heart, he said, his voice dripping with judgment. Ethan wanted to snap back, but he held his tongue. He wasn't doing this for them. He was doing it for himself. Tom, too, faced pressure. Old Navy buddies called, offering unsolicited advice. Pastor James stopped by the house, urging Tom to save his son. Tom shut him down, his voice firm. This is my family. Stay out of it. It was a small victory, but it meant everything to Ethan when he heard about it. One evening, Tom invited Ethan and Ryan to dinner at the house. It was the first time Ryan had been there as Ethan's partner, not just his friend. The air was thick with tension as they sat at the worn kitchen table, eating Tom's attempt at lasagna. Ryan broke the ice, asking Tom about his Navy days. To Ethan's surprise, Tom opened up, sharing stories of storms at sea and comrades he'd lost. By the end of the night, they were laughing, the awkwardness easing. As they left, Tom pulled Ethan aside. Ryan's a good guy, he said quietly. I can see why you love him. Ethan's heart swelled. Thanks, Dad. But the peace was fragile. A week later, Ethan got a call from Linda. Ethan, you need to get to the hospital. It's your dad. Ethan's world tilted as he sped toward Astoria General Hospital, Ryan gripping the passenger seat beside him. Linda's voice echoed in his head. Heart attack. Tom, the man who'd survived storms at sea and decades of hard living, was lying in a hospital bed. Ethan's mind raced with guilt had their talks. The stress of his coming out pushed Tom to this. At the hospital, Ethan found Linda in the waiting room, her face pale. He's stable, she said, squeezing Ethan's hand. It was a mild attack, but he's okay. They're running tests. Ethan's knees buckled, relief and fear colliding. Ryan guided him to a chair, his presence a steady anchor. He's tough, Ryan said. He'll pull through. When Ethan was allowed to see Tom, he barely recognized the man in the hospital bed. Tom looked smaller, his face gray under the fluorescent lights, and Ford dripping into his arm. But his eyes lit up when he saw Ethan. Hey, kid, he rasped. Sorry for scaring you. Ethan's throat closed. Dad, don't. Just get better. Okay. Tom nodded, his hand reaching for Ethan's. I'm not going anywhere. Not yet. Over the next few days, Ethan and Ryan took turns at Tom's bedside. The hospital became a strange limbo, a place where time slowed and truths surfaced. Tom talked more openly than ever, perhaps because the brush with mortality had stripped away his defenses. He told Ethan about his own father, a cold man who'd never shown affection. I didn't want to be like him, Tom said, but I think I was. In some ways. I pushed you to be what I thought a man should be. I'm sorry, Ethan. Ethan's eyes burned. You don't have to be sorry. You're here now. Tom's recovery was slow but steady. Dr. Ellis visited, offering support, and Ethan began to trust him. The counselor helped Tom articulate his fears not of Ethan's identity, but of failing as a father. I want you to have a good life, Tom told Ethan one night. I just don't know what that looks like for you. It looks like this, Ethan said, gesturing to Ryan, who was dozing in a chair. It looks like love, Dad. Like what you and Mom had. Tom's face softened at the mention of Ethan's mother, who died when Ethan was 10. Yeah, he said quietly. I think I get that. When Tom was discharged, Ethan and Ryan helped him settle back home. The house felt different now, warmer somehow, despite the same sagging porch and creaky floors. Tom insisted on cooking dinner a simple roast, his specialty, and the three of them sat around the table. The conversation easier than before. Tom even asked Ryan about his job as a graphic designer, genuinely curious. But Storia wasn't done testing them. The gossip had grown louder, fueled by Pastor James and his congregation. One Sunday, a group of protesters appeared outside the bookstore where Ethan worked, holding signs with phrases like "Repent" and "Save our families." Ethan watched from the window, his stomach churning. Ryan, who'd come to pick him up, squeezed his shoulder. They don't get to define you, he said. Ethan wanted to believe him, but the hate stung. That night, he and Ryan went to the cliffside, their sanctuary. The stars were out, and the air was crisp. Ethan leaned into Ryan, drawing strength from his warmth. I thought coming out would be the hard part, Ethan said, but it's everything after. Ryan kissed his forehead. You're not alone in this. You've got me. And your dad's coming around. Ethan nodded, but doubt lingered. Tom was trying, but could he stand up to a town that had shaped him? Could he face the people he'd known for decades? The answer came sooner than Ethan expected. The next day, Tom called, his voice urgent. Ethan, come to the community center tonight. 7 o'clock. Bring Ryan. Ethan's gut twisted. What's going on, Dad? Just come, Tom said. Trust me. At 7, Ethan and Ryan walked into the Astoria Community Center, a squat brick building where town meetings and potlucks were held. The room was packed, the air thick with tension. Ethan recognized faces: neighbors, co-workers, old teachers. Pastor James stood at the front, mid-sermon, his voice booming about family values. Ethan's heart sank. Had Tom set him up? But then Tom stood, his broad frame commanding attention. The room fell silent. I've listened to enough of this, Tom said, his voice steady but laced with anger. You're talking about my son. Ethan's a better man than most of you will ever know. He's honest. He's kind. And he's got the courage to live his truth. You don't get to judge him. The room erupted in murmurs. Pastor James started to protest, but Tom cut him off. I was like you once. Thought I knew what was right. But I was wrong. Ethan's not the one who needs saving. We are, if we can't love our own kids for who they are. Ethan's breath caught. Ryan gripped his hand, tears in his eyes. Tom turned to them, his expression fierce but proud. I love you, Ethan. And Ryan. You're family now. The crowd was a mix of shock and discomfort. But a few people clapped Linda, some of Ethan's co-workers, even a couple of Tom's old Navy buddies. Pastor James stormed out, but Tom didn't flinch. He walked to Ethan and pulled him into a hug, the kind Ethan hadn't felt since he was a kid. I'm proud of you, Tom whispered. I'm sorry it took me so long. Ethan clung to him, tears streaming down his face. It's okay, Dad. You're here now. Tom's stand at the community center rippled through Astoria like a stone in a still pond. For Ethan, it was a turning point, a moment he'd never dared imagine. His father, the man who'd once embodied the town's rigid ideals, had publicly defended him. But the victory was bittersweet. The town was divided. Some rallied behind Tom's courage, while others doubled down on their judgment. Ethan felt the weight of every stare, every whisper, as he walked through Astoria's streets. At the bookstore, Ethan's boss, a kind older woman named Clara, pulled him aside. "What your dad did, that took guts," she said. "You've got allies here, Ethan. Don't forget that." Her words were a balm, but they couldn't erase the graffiti that appeared on the bookstore's wall a few days later. "Sinner." Ethan scrubbed it off himself, his jaw tight, refusing to let it break him. Ryan was his refuge. They spent evenings at the cliffside, talking about the future. "Let's get out of here," Ryan said one night, the stars reflecting in his eyes. "Portland, Seattle, anywhere. We could start fresh." Ethan wanted to say yes, to leave behind the small-town scrutiny, but the thought of abandoning Tom stopped him. His father had fought for him. Ethan couldn't walk away now. Tom, meanwhile, was navigating his own battles. He'd lost friendsmen he'd known for decades who couldn't reconcile with his new stance. But he didn't waver. He started attending a support group for parents of LGBTQ kids, driving an hour to Portland each week. Ethan went with him once, sitting quietly as Tom shared his journey. "I was scared I'd lose my son," Tom said to the group. "But I was the one who needed to change." Ethan's heart swelled with pride. One evening, Tom invited Ethan and Ryan to the house for a project. When they arrived, Tom led them to the backyard, where a pile of lumber and tools waited. "Thought we could build something," Tom said, a shy grin breaking through. "A bench. Maybe. For you two. For the cliffside." Ethan blinked, stunned. "You serious?" Tom nodded. "I want you to have a place that's yours. Somewhere you can be together. No hiding." The three of them spent the weekend building the bench, laughing and cursing as they measured and hammered. It was simple pine, sanded smooth, with a small plaque that read Ethan and Ryan. When they carried it to the cliffside and set it in place, Ethan felt a lump in his throat. Tom clapped a hand on his shoulder. "This is your home, too," he said. "Always will be." But peace was fleeting. A week later, Ethan got a call from Clara. The bookstore had been vandalized again this time. A broken window and a note, "Leave or else." Ethan's blood ran cold. He and Ryan reported it to the police. But the officer, an old friend of Pastor James, was dismissive. "Kids being kids," he said, shrugging. Ethan knew better. When he told Tom, his father's face darkened. "This stops now," Tom said. He marched to the community center, where a town meeting was scheduled that evening. Ethan and Ryan followed, uneasy but curious. The room was packed again, the air charged with tension. Pastor James was there, rallying his supporters. But Tom didn't wait for permission to speak. "This is my town," Tom said, his voice carrying over the crowd. "I've lived here my whole life. I've fought for this country, raised my son here. And I'm ashamed of what some of you are doing. You're targeting my boy, my family. If you've got a problem with him, you've got a problem with me." The room was silent, the weight of Tom's words sinking in. Then Linda stood, her voice steady. "He's right. Ethan's one of us. So is Ryan. If we can't accept them, what kind of community are we?" One by one, others stood Clara, a few of Ethan's co-workers, even a couple of teenagers who'd been in Ethan's high school class. Not everyone joined, but it was enough. Pastor James left without a word. His influence diminished. Ethan felt tears prick his eyes, not from sadness, but from the realization that he wasn't alone. That night, at the cliffside, Ethan and Ryan sat on their new bench, the ocean whispering below. I think we're gonna be okay, Ethan said, his voice soft. Ryan smiled, pulling him close. Yeah, we are. Months passed, and Astoria began to change. The vandalism stopped, and while some residents kept their distance, others reached out. Ethan and Ryan became a familiar sight, holding hands at the farmer's market or sharing coffee at the local diner. Tom was often with them, his pride in his son unmistakable. He'd started volunteering with the Portland support group, helping other parents navigate their journeys. If I can change, anyone can, he'd say, his gruff voice laced with conviction. Ethan and Ryan decided to stay in Astoria, at least for now. The cliffside bench became their ritual, a place to dream and plan. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ryan pulled a small box from his pocket. Ethan's breath caught as Ryan knelt, his hazel eyes shining. Ethan Caldwell, Ryan said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me? Ethan laughed through tears, pulling Ryan up into a kiss. Yes. 1,000 times. Yes. They told Tom the next day, nervous but hopeful. Tom's face broke into a grin, and he pulled them both into a hug. About time, he said, his voice thick. Let's make this a proper celebration. The wedding was small, held on the cliffside with their bench as the centerpiece. Linda officiated, her voice warm with emotion. Clara and other allies from town filled the seats, their presence a testament to how far Astoria had come. Tom walked Ethan down the aisle, his eyes misty but proud. Your mom would have loved this, he whispered, squeezing Ethan's hand. As Ethan and Ryan exchanged vows, the wind carried their words over the ocean. I promise to love you through every storm, Ethan said, his voice breaking. Ryan smiled, his own voice steady. And I promise to be your home. Always. When they kissed, the small crowd erupted in cheers. Tom was the loudest, his applause echoing across the cliffs. Later, at the reception in the community center, he gave a speech that left no dry eyes. I almost lost my son because I was too stubborn to see him, Tom said. But he taught me what love really means. Ethan, re-enure my family. And I'm damn proud of you. The night ended with dancing, laughter, and the kind of joy Ethan had never thought possible in Astoria. As he and Ryan swayed to a slow song, Ethan looked at his father, who was laughing with Linda and Clara. For the first time, he felt whole. Years later, Ethan and Ryan still visited the cliffside bench, now weathered but sturdy, a symbol of their love and Tom's transformation. Tom became an advocate, speaking at schools and community centers about acceptance. He and Ethan grew closer than ever, their bond forged through honesty and courage. Astoria wasn't perfect. Some wounds lingered, and not everyone changed. But the town had shifted, its heart opened by one man's love for his son. Ethan and Ryan built a life there, surrounded by allies who'd become family. And every time Ethan looked at the ocean, he felt his mother's presence, her love woven into the wind. The bench's plaque, Ethan and Ryan, caught the sunlight as they sat one evening, their hands entwined. We did it, Ethan said, his voice soft. We made a home. Ryan kissed him, the ocean stretching endless before them. Yeah, he said, and it's just the beginning. Their story wasn't just about coming out. It was about rebuilding, about love that refused to break, and about a father and son who found each other again. It was a reminder that change, though hard, was possible and that love could reshape even the hardest hearts.